It's fucking fire.
Hey guys, welcome back to Token Talks. I'm Ricardo, joined with Ed and Greg as usual, and today we're gonna have a little bit of a more fun, more discussion-based video. You guys feel free to air your opinions in the comment section down below, and we're gonna be talking about who we believe is the best console manufacturer. I'm gonna save mine to the end because, as contrary to popular belief, I'm gonna say Nintendo, but I'm gonna save my argument to the end. So I'm gonna kick it over to Greg, and let's hear what he has to say.
So out of the big three, which are Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, the thing comes down to how you want to go about actually answering this loaded question. Because you're saying the best console manufacturer. Like,
No,
you
your
can define
favorite.
that however you want. It all comes down to how you define the console. Like, what do you want to get out of a console, and what makes a console the best? Like, you could say sales numbers. That's one thing. You could say capabilities. You could say lifetime. Like, it's just all how you want to really define it.
Yeah, that's why I worded the question that way, because it really is open-ended and loaded. So like people are gonna get emotionally involved with it, but you can also take it basically any way you want to. Like you said, like I just said best. Didn't say most successful. Didn't say best sales. Didn't say best games. Most money, most profit. I just said best. So what is your best console manufacturer? Sorry, I stumbled a little bit there.
I'll say best by first defining the best for each specific way I want to go about answering it. So, best by most successful, which means the best number of product sales for lifetime game productions with those consoles. I would have to go with Sony for, the PlayStation 2 pretty much created its own era of its and it's really just hard to compete with. Like, I had the original PS2. When that broke, I got a PS2 Lite. That thing went on for a long period of time.
I still have my original fat PS2 sitting right there, and it still works.
Mm-hmm. PlayStation all the way back then, the PS2, followed by the PS Vita, no, the PSP,
yep.
PS3, and then the PS Vita, and now the PS4. Like, just dynamite console after console in their respective eras. Whereas the other ones were definitely good, but I don't think that they really outcompeted them in the market. And there's actually lists of the best-selling game consoles that can just back up that, like, the PS2 was definitely the best in its category. But this is also to say, if you go to the same list, multiple Nintendo products are also in the top spots.
Yep.
Like, you have the PS2, followed by Nintendo DS, followed by the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, followed by the original PlayStation. So they're very close in that respect.
Yeah.
If we want to talk graphics-wise, I don't know if you even want to put Nintendo into the running, because even though you can accomplish a lot with, like, the Nintendo 3DS, Monster Hunter looks amazing, the Persona's games are great, it's nowhere near close to Microsoft or Sony.
Oh, no, that's the truth.
But when it comes to multiplayer games, where you just, like, sit down with some friends and just mess around, Nintendo definitely has it all the way. Like, you can sit down to Smash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Soul Calibur, back in GameCube era.
4-player, right?
Mm-hmm. Mario Party, any variant of that you want to include, as well as multiple other spin-off games, similar to Mario Party. Mario Kart, like, there's just so much. One of my personal favorites for the GameCube was Tales of Symphonia. It was, in essence, a single-player game, but you could have multiple players on the different controllers controlling the different characters in battle. So you could literally have the one person running through as, like, the team leader, but everyone else pretty much being a part of the team. Like, that for me would make them best in multiplayer, that kind of aspect.
Okay, is that it?
That's all for now until something comes up.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that sounds good. I feel like it's a typical Greg answer. Kind of like seeing it from all perspectives. So your answer is literally all of the above, but for different reasons.
I don't think I put Microsoft into
So you don't
any
think
of them.
Microsoft has anything?
They were definitely good, but they, in my opinion, didn't outcompete Sony or Nintendo in any kind of category specifically.
Okay, I think I can agree with you with that, because they kind of are going after the same place that Sony's going after, and so if Sony does it better, then they're kind of out of the race. All right, so Ed, I'd like to hear your perspective.
Oh, it's my turn now. Sorry. My choice would be PlayStation.
Yeah.
Like them. They have more games than both. In my right? That's right. They have more games for their consoles.
Well,
or depending on the
I'd say
console.
you're correct if we're talking about the current generation.
Yeah.
If we limit it just to current generation, yes. But if we look into like their library, and if you combine mobile with console, and mobile consoles are a thing,
Yep.
but I mean, I kind of want to keep it towards the home consoles. But regardless, I'd say Nintendo over Nintendo's lifetime, since they've been around so long, probably has a bigger library. But if we're looking at PS4 versus Switch/Wii U, definitely have more games.
In my opinion, PlayStation is more. I want to say cutting edge in a certain way.
Okay.
Because they had the PlayStation. I know it didn't beat out. Nintendo had something, the NES way before, but PlayStation, amazing. And then now to this current generation, they have virtual reality, which Microsoft early stages, as compared to PlayStation. I know PlayStation's virtual reality kind of still.
Yeah, it's not the greatest.
Yeah. I just like.
But it's definitely the cheapest. I think you cut out. Are you still there?
I don't think the virtual reality is that good on PlayStation, but at least they still have it. I just like all the compared, Microsoft and Sony. I like their games more than Nintendo. Nintendo kind of seems a little more well, their gameplay is, and when I think of Nintendo, I think of more like cartoonish games.
Yeah.
Play a lot of games on like the PSP if you wanted something, handheld, portable. That's just me for me. But yeah, PlayStation for me, nostalgic. One of my favorites. Definitely.
All right. I think you have some good points. Like their games, right, are definitely different than games on Nintendo, especially in this generation, and they have a lot of talent. Like I feel bad for both Nintendo and Microsoft in this generation because it seems like Sony is just killing it with the games and having great game after great game in different genres. So they really have everything for everyone. And they are trying out different things. Like you said, they are moving in different directions. So they do have, the VR. And whereas their VR isn't that great, like we can be honest, if you want to have a good VR experience, you're really looking at the Vive, and that's on PC, and that's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Where, PlayStation VR is like $500 for the whole package. I mean, you still have to have a PlayStation 4, but and you can do somewhat decent VR with that. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a good argument. But in my opinion, I think both Microsoft and Sony fall when it comes to comparing consoles to Nintendo. Now, I'm not a Nintendo fanboy. I honestly don't even really like Nintendo. I've talked about Nintendo in other videos, and I don't like them as a corporation, and I did not grow up with Nintendo. The only Nintendo consoles I really had were the handhelds. Did not have an N64, did not have a Super Nintendo, didn't have a Nintendo, didn't have a GameCube. I have one now, but I bought it like 3 years ago because I wanted to play, some of the games that were on the GameCube. So it's not like this is near and dear to my heart. For me, I'm a Sony. If anything, I'm a Sony fanboy. I agree with what you guys said about Sony. I do think Sony is great, but if we're talking specifically about consoles, about making a good console, in my opinion, I do think Nintendo is really the only company that still makes consoles. And that's where my argument comes from, okay? So basically, I'm defining a gaming console, right? And so a gaming console is a machine dedicated to playing video games. And that does it in a, let's say, unique or different way. So you can look back at like the NES, the Super NES, they're pretty basic, but it was rudimentary games back then. Something like a directional pad was breakthrough. Something like shoulder buttons were breakthrough back then. And those were all coming from Nintendo. Then you go to like the N64. They had a different weird controller, and whereas it might have not been the best controller, they were trying out new things. And for the games that were optimized for those controllers, it really did make those games unique and fun in their own way. And then you go to the GameCube, again, a different form factor. It definitely had issues. But again, the mini discs were terrible, but it had a unique controller again, with unique game ideas that basically this different console allowed for these different types of experience to be made. Whereas you had Sony at this point, and also Xbox, the original at that point, which were kind of generic, just a powerful system with a basic controller to just do what you will, but no real innovation. I know I don't really like using that word, but let's be honest here, right? And then with the Wii, trash. But it did use motion controls, which, yes, it was a gimmick, but it sold that system. And whereas 90% of the games made for that were trash, the games that were designed and optimized for those motion controls were really good and really fun. Like the Mario games, the Mario World games, for that generation were really good with those motion controls, and I think a lot of the issue came from PS2 just dominating the market,
Mm-hmm.
So all these games are being created for traditional controls, then being ported over to motion controls that didn't really make sense, and I'm talking about it dominated before the Wii, so like all these games kind of kept that going. And then with the Wii U, again, you see this change. They're not competing for the highest specs or the most features. They're trying to make the most unique and fun gaming experience. Wii U, I hear this all the time. We all hear this. The Wii U is a fun system. The Wii U has great games. It does. But Nintendo as a company failed it. But they made a great system. The Wii U is a good system. It's a good system to play games on. I've played Wii U before and I had so much fun on it. And in the end, is that not what games are meant to do? And like you said with the PlayStation, it has different games with a different audience. It's not trying to give you that Last of Us experience. It's trying to give you, that childhood joy and fun that we all grew up having. You know what I mean? Like, The Last of Us is great, but like you said earlier, Greg, it's not Mario Kart with your friends on the couch. Those are two different experiences that are both amazing and powerful experiences to have. And then, we can move on forward to the Nintendo Switch that's out now. Again, breaking boundaries. Going with a hybrid console. Oh, you want to play it on the TV? You want to play it on the go? Well, guess what? They're the same game. They work exactly the same, and you can pick it up and go. Seamless, too. It's really pretty cool that they were able to achieve that. And so when I look and compare it to Microsoft and I compare it to Sony, what I see them doing is basically iterating on their previous design. So much so that the current quote unquote consoles that they have out right now are basically PCs. They use x86 processors. They use the same instruction set. Fucking Xbox One runs Windows 10. So they have graphics processors, regular CPUs. Like I said, they run the same instruction set as a regular PC does. They use standard hard drives. They use basic controllers. Everything about them. To me, I see a console from Microsoft and Sony as baby's first PC. I'm gonna be really honest. That's what it comes down to. Like, think about it. Why in the world are console gamers arguing about how many cores their CPU has, how much RAM it has, the different kind of RAM it has, the graphics, how much graphics horsepower it has, the teraflops. That's all I've been hearing. Teraflops. Oh, the Xbox Scorpio has 6 teraflops. I'm like, do you even know what that means? And they don't, but they don't mind yelling that shit around. And so, why? You don't hear that from Nintendo at all. They're not sitting here trying to sell you on, we have the latest and greatest processor and graphics processor and, teraflops and stuff like that, which, we care about and we know about because we're PC gamers. But PCs aren't a console. And so, if like traditionally not a gaming console, right? And so when you look at a PlayStation 4 and realize, oh, it uses an AMD APU and it uses the x86 instruction set, so it is literally a PC that they just put their own version of their own operating system, which is basically a Unix operating system. And then you look at like the Sony, the Microsoft version, the Xbox One, and you're like, wow, it's literally the same thing that the PlayStation has, but it's running Windows 10, which is why almost every AAA game on Xbox is also released on the Windows Store for PCs. So for me, I can't even really consider the newest generation as a gaming console that we traditionally understand a gaming console to be. If you look back, and I know they're not included in this list, but look at like Atari, look at Nintendo, look at Sega. They were doing different things and trying different stuff and making consoles that didn't care about anything else but games. And even Sony did that at one point. And I guess Sony really changed it up. When they made this PlayStation 2, they made it's not a gaming console anymore. It's an entertainment system. It plays CDs, it plays DVDs, and it plays games. And it can even run Linux. So let's remember that. It had support for Linux. That's not a console anymore. That's a PC. And as you keep going on, the next generation did the same thing, and now the current generation is doing that same thing, but now getting closer and closer to PC. That's why I think, a lot of people who play these consoles, they're only one step away from being PC gamers. Where if you look at a Nintendo fan who only plays Nintendo, they're a lot further from a PC gamer than a PlayStation gamer would be, and so my argument is that Nintendo traditionally has always looked to making a great gaming experience, a new and unique gaming experience, and doesn't care about all these other features because they're a gaming company, and the other guys have kind of sold out. They make baby's first PC, in my opinion, not in a bad way. I'm not saying that in any type of negative way, but that's how I see it. I see them as just like, why would I buy a PlayStation when my computer is so much better and basically does the same thing but better? The only reason would be exclusives, but that's a whole other discussion for another video. But so in my opinion, it has to be Nintendo because they're the only ones that still make traditional gaming consoles. Now, we can make an argument if, that's a good or a bad thing. But in my opinion, since they're the only ones, they have to be the best one.
I think there's definitely this break that's happened, especially in the more recent years, with just technological development, where, especially since like the PS2, the market's pretty much been converging in on the specific, I'd say, standard. So the consoles since then, before then were pretty much like cutting edge. They were out competing everything, pretty much just fighting amongst themselves, with Nintendo kind of on the sidelines because they were doing their own thing, as you were saying. But after the PS2 era, technology, especially PC gaming, had explosive spurts. So now consoles are pretty much trying to compete on those same forefronts with something that relatively can outcompete it.
Yeah.
So developers are really having this really hard moment where they're trying to exploit this long-standing niche. You kind of explained this in like an earlier video. People don't want to change. And no matter how much you try to ram it down their throat, they don't want to change their opinion. If they think that you don't game with PCs or it's just really hard, that's not the case anymore. Like, they're easily more accessible.
Yep.
And this first step into like PC gaming that you're explaining, people don't want to see it as that. They want to still believe that these gaming consoles are just gaming consoles, even though there's all this diversity to what you can do, the utilities that they can accommodate, which still fall below modern PCs. But they want to see that kind of disconnect, that weakness, as like, okay, that's where it's really separate, and even if it's getting closer to there, it's not like I'm trying to just buy a PC, I'm buying a gaming console. But price-wise, you can still outcompete them with a PC.
Well, yeah, definitely. Because like I was saying, they are using PC parts. They're using AMD processors, APUs that you can buy. That all that stuff, everything they have, you can buy. And you can't make a PS4. That's proprietary, whatever. But when they launched, people took the same price. Okay, $400. Let me buy $400 worth of parts when it launched, and build a PC. And it did outperform it a little bit, but it comes down to that the PC outperformed the PS4 just a little bit at the same price, because it comes down to the fact that they're using standard parts now. I shouldn't say standard, but they're using PC parts now. So if they're going to make a profit, and that means that, they're getting it at a discount because they're buying like thousands of them at a time, but they have to raise the price so that they can make a profit. So you could, at launch, build a PC for the same exact price that was the same, if not better, than the console. And of course, today, because how PC hardware never stops getting better, you can build a PC for $400 that destroys a PlayStation 4 right now. But I guess that's what I'm getting at here. Like you said, off to the side, right? Like, at every conference, Nintendo says, we're not competing with those guys. And it would always make me angry. I'm like, why are they not competing? That's so dumb. They're admitting defeat. They're saying, what I thought they were saying was, PlayStation and Xbox are better than us. We're not competing with them, so we're doing this. But now it makes sense to me, because I kind of better understand Nintendo's place in the industry. And they've always, since the beginning, have been that company that make cheaper stuff using a slightly older technology, but in a new and a unique way to give a different experience, so that you can have unique games built for that specific hardware that you can't find anywhere else. And that's where Nintendo stands. And that's why, to me, they're the best. Whereas, again, Sony and Microsoft just make kind of watered down, streamlined PCs for people who don't want to learn about PCs. And so whereas I can get a better experience on my, on my actual PC, I really can't get a Nintendo Switch experience with my PC. And that way I say they're the best, even though I don't like them. And if I had to buy a console, I'd probably buy a PlayStation, or a Switch. Switch is pretty cool.
I'd probably get a Switch.
But I don't want to pay to play online.
Yeah. That was the biggest change for Nintendo that I saw. I was like, really?
They had it was free in the Wii U, but now they went pay to play online model. But yeah, I guess that's for our arguments, guys, and I think let me know if you agree with me in the comments. All right?
I don't.
I still have like a closing, just like a side note.
Okay.
And this will definitely be like a big thing that people might just be overlooking. But we're in America, so we don't have the same experience as people in Japan who have a lot more exclusive content, specifically from Sony, from Nintendo. Like,
Yeah, that's true. They do. I didn't think about that.
I've seen some of the games they have, and I'm like, oh man, if only that was ported over for our language so I can actually try to play this, I might pick up one of these systems.
Yep.
But they're just not.
And also, we're not taking into consideration how different countries will have different prices. I know in Brazil, because of all the taxes, they basically are still playing on Sega systems because it's too expensive to buy anything newer than like a Sega Master System, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, some places shit's just more expensive.
Yeah. So your locality can definitely drastically change your outlook on the systems.
Yeah, so let us know how you guys think and how you guys feel in the description, or not description, in the comment section, and let us know who you think won.
Are you talking between us or the manufacturers?
Oh,
See
both.
ya.
It's fucking fire.